All right, guys, welcome to week 10. Welcome back. Hopefully, everything is going good. Hopefully, you are making your way through this semester as smooth as possible. I do know that it's a huge transition, it's a huge adjustment for myself. I get behind on things and I have to catch up and back and forth, back and forth. So, hopefully, you are adjusting to this semester fairly easily. The the challenges are real, and I get it. This week's course of topics is pretty heavy, and so what we're going to talk about is I'm going to pull out two things that really mean a ton to me, that I've done a lot of research on over my time in the classroom, and so I'm going to touch on those two things. First, I want to do a couple of housekeeping deals, as they say. And I want to mention, if you're behind on, and I received emails on this, if you're behind on anything, do not panic. Find a way to plan out getting back ahead. Stay in contact with me. You will not fail. Okay, plain and simple, but you have to make sure that you're going through the weekly checklist. This week, discussion response, I had 9 out of 25. That's not good, guys. We only have 6 weeks left. Actually, 5 weeks left. 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16. That's finals week. So we have 5, in essence, weeks left that we really need to be focused on being complete. This is an introductory course. There's no reason why you should not get an A in this course. So make sure that you are focused on doing that. WebEx's, our weekly meeting. For weeks we had a few technical glitches. And then there were some that were missed. Then there were some that I missed. Some of the students that were in there. Then there were some that y'all were able to come together and have a little get together. We're gonna just suspend those for right now. And if there is a request that you want face-to-face office hours, talk about whatever you want, we can set that up. Or if a group y'all want to do that, we can set up an individual. But I think that weekly planned is not working out as we planned. So again, we're going to suspend the WebEx Tuesdays at 5 for right now. I know a lot of y'all have been emailing questions and it's been successful. Hopefully successful in getting information. So with that being said, let's launch into this wonderful world of rapid fire little question responses here. All right, so week 9, we were looking at last week, obviously. And first one, have you ever had a student that could not grasp the information that you were teaching him whatsoever? Absolutely. Okay, excellent question, because you will become extremely frustrated. And what you have to do is, the easiest way to build knowledge capacity is to pre-assess. And if I can simply say, what is this? And I can get a response, well, it's a pen. Okay, that doesn't tell me that they know what type of pen it is. They don't know that it's a little fine tip felt point, but they do know base knowledge it's a pen. Now I can build on it, right? Now if I tell a kid, what is this? And they say, well, it's a fine tip felt pen, commonly used for calendaring and note taking. I'm like, well, that kid, he has experience with this pen, right? So now I'm going to take it to the next level and I say, all right, let's build that knowledge and say, well, how many different varieties of those pens do you know of? Okay, and how many have you used personally? So now I know that I can take that kid to a new level. The one kid that was like, I don't know, is that a pen or a marker? Okay, so that knowledge base is going to have to start at the fact that, well, what we're considering this is a felt-tipped pen. And so what we use felt-tip pens for is then you start to open the door to building their capacity for knowledge, because that's the one thing you have to do. You have to build capacity for knowledge, and one of the greatest ways to do that is to pre-assess. Okay, but yeah, I've run into that. They just don't get it, and you're like, come on, it's common sense. But it's common sense to you, a degreed professional. It may not be common sense to those that don't have experiences, and that's an actual, I wish I ended on this question because it's a perfect segue into teaching students in poverty that don't have all the life experiences as some do. So I'm going to hold on to that one for a second. All right. One thing to the overall thoughts. Okay, no question there. I don't see a question. That's cool. One question: has there ever been a time that you felt you failed a student in some way? Yeah, a lot. But here's how I get over that. I'm very open and honest with all of my students, and I, I I keep lines of communication open with my students, and if I feel like I don't know if I failed them in a way as far as instruction goes, but if I can remain honest, open and honest with the student, they you can rebuild that failed part of the relationship pretty easily. I'm trying to just work my way through this question by thinking out loud. I can promise you that I have failed a student by getting frustrated and angry when I didn't understand the entire situation. So yeah, it happens, and then you sit back and go, man, that was dumb. It's a kid. It's dumb. I don't know what's going on in that child's day, and I lost my cool with them, and so yeah, I have failed. But what I do is I go back and I have one-on-one conversations. Look, I'm owning this right now, and I'm sorry that XYZ happened. So it's huge ownership. It's that buy-in and trust that they have with you from that. Moving right along, because this should not take long today. What helps being disciplined? What helps being disciplined in accordance with a specific philosophy? What help being? I'm not sure I understand this question. What help being disciplined in accordance? I don't understand this question. Okay, so hopefully, Zenob, if you can re-ask that question next week, I'll definitely be able to answer it. Okay, I like that. I'm going to save this question because I really, really like this question from Christine. I'm going to come back to it in just a moment. What philosophy do you identify with most? Again, if we're looking at the big, broad spectrum of education, I would go with a more student-centric philosophy style. I mean, that's an open-ended question because I'm very flexible in instructional practices, so I can identify very closely. But the student-centric, to where you create intrinsic motivation for the students to be successful, that's my jam. Okay, that's where I thrive, and that is where I like to be. All right. Where do you believe the balance lies in standardization of what students are supposed to learn, and is it supposed to be freer pursuit? That's unique. So there's a balance in checking the boxes to what the TEKs say, and then in my situation in history, really allowing free thought. I love the idea of, I'm going to give you this information. We need to know this right here. But now let's take it a step further and let's build in. If you can master these ideas, what the TEKs say, the state says that you need to do, now I want to expand your thoughts. I want to make you more of a global thinker with connections. There has to be that balance, because if not, you become a robot. And you're simply just preaching what the state says. You're not a teacher, you're an information sender. And you're sending information that's just pinging off of walls, and kids aren't grasping crap. So you have to understand the global idea of reaching students on multiple different levels. Are there any key figures in history, authors, or other resources that have shaped your teaching philosophy that you would like to share? This would be the most unpopular thing that I could ever say. No, there's not. I don't like to get ideas from other people. And that sounds bad. That sounds terrible. I want to be an original thinker with proven practices that were taught to me. Wow, that's a tough question now that I think about it. There's nobody that necessarily I can sit there and say that this is a huge influence to me. I tell you what, outside of the educational world, Max Lucado, he's an author that really has a big push in the world of more faith-based leadership practices, structure of life practices. So maybe that, but I don't like to sit there and take. I tell you what, you'll hear about people who write these books and who do these things because they took ideas and they packaged it before anybody else did, and then they say, "Oh, this is the holy grail of instruction," and they're like, "Whatever, you've never even been in class. I don't prescribe to it. I've developed my view of education and my approach simply through practice." And that is one of the most unpopular things that you could possibly ever say in education, because everybody wants you to fall in line with what works from somebody's book or somebody's lecture. That's not reality to me, because I teach more on the fly than not, based on a solid education and pedagogy. Is there a wrong way of approaching different teaching styles? No. And I think I just covered that. So Destiny, hopefully that previous answer really hones in. Pick and choose from it's like whenever they wrote the Constitution, right? 1787. They sat back and they said, we're going to look at the Magna Carta, we're going to look at the English Bill of Rights, we're going to look at the Virginia House of Burgesses, the Fundamental Orders of Connecticut, town hall meetings in New England. We're going to be looking at what else is there? The Declaration of Independence. And we're going to take all of these grand ideas and we're going to pick and choose what works best, or what will work best, what will change the world. And that's how I approach it. I pick and choose things that work for me. I get inundated with stuff and it's terrible. I'm like, oh, we're doing this now? And I think I mentioned this before. And I take it with a grain of salt. I do not get over inundated with the bearing down of, oh, this is something new, we got to do something new, okay, all right, let me change everything I do. No, I still, no matter what, if it's not best for my kids, I won't do it. I think I tailed off a little bit on there. Is there a wrong way of approaching different teaching styles? There's simply not. Hopefully that answers that. Bell, and I love Belleville. The Hill, I've not had a Hill burger probably since I was in high school. How are you adapting this year? Middle school, it's a struggle. How am I adapting? It is very, very difficult. There's changes every single day. It's a booger. I'm telling you, it is tough. But I'm now, what I did was I found something that worked for me through the Schoology platform that we're using and face-to-face. And I'm working only with that capacity. I'm not trying to expand out and learn new stuff about it. I'm using what I can do daily to be successful, and that's what I'm sticking with for now. What is the biggest difference in teaching smaller district than bigger one? Smaller districts, you have a lot of freedom. Bigger ones, it's government, basically. You're working for the government. They're their own little government. The district, Cy-Fair, is a humongous entity, and there is a lot of rules and regulations outside of just the state rules and regulations. Smaller districts, you have a little bit more freedom. You have less overbearing leaders. I'll say that. Is that bad? How did Davy Crockett die? He was executed in front of Santa Ana. He was the last remaining fighter. Obviously, there were other people at the Alamo that were still there, women and children, and they were and slaves, and they were allowed to leave. But Davy Crockett was executed, probably not in the exact way that the Hollywood tells us he was, but he was the last one to die. Did they chop his head off, or did they shoot him? Bum, bum, bum. Stay tuned next week. All right. Okay, back to this one question, and then we'll move forward. Where was it? All right, so you mentioned everything that you're involved with: the real estate, seasoning company, seasoning business, a history teacher, and our professor. Is that all of them? 1, 2, 3, 4? 4? Yeah. How do you balance it all? I don't. No. I am in 5 classes: mom, wife, and full-time job. Holy smokes, Christine, you are an absolute rock star, but want to die from exhaustion every single day. I get it. Wow, do I get it. But seriously, spill the beans and tell us the secret. All right, so the secret is I am so driven to be successful that I literally will do whatever I can to make sure that my family's taken care of, right, on the highest level. Now, real estate, it's up and down, right? So it's how much effort am I putting into it to be able to garner new clients. My seasoning company, I have a partner, my best friend that's with me, and we purposefully plan ups and downs so that we're not we're not blending spices every day. I'm not running advertisements every day. I'm not shipping things out every day. I wish I was, but it's a young business. The secret is, where do you want to be? What do you want to do, and how do you want to get there? I don't want to be in the middle school classroom forever. I just got back into it, and I love it way better than I love the exhausting meetings. But I want to leave that behind one day, but I have to be financially sound to do so. So my secret is that I am very driven to the cause of what I want, right? And ultimately, I want to be financially secure. And so what I do is, I'm busting out these things all day. I'm busting out the bios and sending out, looking at cards that I'm passing out all the time. I balance it because I want to balance it. Now, I have 2 kids and 1 on the way, a wife at home, and seemingly 4 full-time jobs. And that sounds very close to what Christine is working with here. And so I have a good support system. My wife supports my insanity tenfold. And so I guess the secret, again, I could go on about this for a while, but I want to keep y'all very close on time. The secret is just being driven, waking up every morning, and I plot. What do I need to get done that day, right? Do I need to focus on real estate more so than anything else? Do I need to focus on rifle powder more than anything else? Do I need to, Tuesdays, my lecture days, do I need to get these knocked out? Grading in middle school, what do I have? So find your drive, find your why, and my why is to be financially secure so that my family is taken care of. And that's my drive. So that's how that's my secret. I wish I had a better answer, like magic dust or something that I just go. But all right, okay, good questions, guys. Real quick, I'm not going to spend a lot of time. I want to keep y'all closest to 20 minutes as possible. Heavy topic this week: child abuse and neglect. And what it did. So we got some numbers, and these numbers are staggering. And I mentioned this before. You are going to know more about children, the bad, than you ever want to know. And it's again, I think I mentioned it before. You're going to, in this profession, you're going to laugh. You're going to cry for good reasons. You're going to cry for bad reasons. You're going to have your world rocked to where you just get chills all down your body whenever you hear information about a student that you're like, I had no idea. Looking at him or her, I had no idea. And it's crazy because the child abuse rates and neglect rates are absolutely huge. 78% is mentioned in the book. 78% of fatalities between 0 and 3 come from child abuse and neglect. That's heavy. That's huge. My best friend, who's my business partner, they adopted their son 9 years ago, and he was a victim of abuse to the point where he had 2 skull fractures because of he was being beaten as an infant, right? So it's absolutely insane, and it's something that we have to understand. And this is where my angle on this is going to be compassion. I had a student come up to me 2 weeks ago, and he said, "Hey, Mr. Hartman." And I'm like, "Hey, Miguel, what did I say his name was? Marcus. Yeah, Marcus is his name. He came up to me and he said, we're calling him Marcus, right? Um, he said, hey, I just want to let you know I may not be prepared for this test today. And I said, oh, all right, man, what's up? And he goes, well, I was at the hospital late last night. And I said, is everything okay? And he said, yeah, my dad is, my dad's probably going to die this week. And I'm like, wow, okay. And I said, man, what's going on? I'm sorry to hear that. He said, well, he's too weak for the lung transplants. They can't do surgery on him, so he's going to be on life support for the rest of his life. It's crushing. It's crushing. But if I didn't know that and I walked in and gave that test, let me tell you the second part of this. First off, I emailed our counselor immediately. I said, hey, if you get a chance to talk to him, please do. I'm going to let him know that your door is wide open to go talk to her if he needs to talk. Most students aren't going to tell you these things. I walked in and I said, hey, you don't have to take this test if you don't want to. I completely understand. He looks at me, no joke, I almost lost it altogether. He said, I have to take this test. Fair is fair. It's hard to sit back and understand what these young people go through. And it's hard to understand that, they go home, they don't even know who's going to be home with them. They don't know if mom's new boyfriend this week is going to be there, maybe hitting them, or if they're going to be there going, I don't know what house I'm going home to today. This is a heavy one. I don't want to get too much into it. I would really like y'all's questions on this stuff, as opposed to me getting into it. But if you look at the perpetrators of this child abuse and neglect, it's obvious it's family members, and they're products of child abuse and neglect, and it carries down. And so there's a huge trust factor with students who face this. They don't trust you. They don't want to trust you. They're scared of big people. And so this is where open honesty and compassion, visible compassion, without being, oh, are you okay? That type of stuff, but genuine compassion, that when you speak, they feel comforted and they trust you. And that's a very difficult thing. One of y'all are going to ask me a question, how do you do that? But it's all situational, and it's so difficult to be able to answer that question. Socioeconomic status is something that I have studied very heavily, as well as poverty, which obviously that's poverty, okay? Low socioeconomic status, and in the poverty world. One of the things that I found out in studying impoverished students is that they fear school because school failed their parents, and they literally they're there because the state makes them be in school. They have to, if not, the parents get in trouble. And impoverished students, you're never going to know, right? Now you know if they're on free and reduced lunch, but you don't know the home situation. Again, you don't know if you're free and reduced. I got my list this year, and I looked at some of the students. I was like, man, I would have never thought, right? It doesn't change my approach to them. It doesn't change the way that I'm going to teach them, and I'm going to care about them, and I'm going to, be involved with them just like I am every other student. But the tidbits of knowledge that you get, I'm like, it's crazy. It's crazy. But understanding poverty, students are going to they're going to have less routines. They're going to have less exercise. They're going to have lower birth rates. They're going to, just some of the things that we saw in our thing, they're going to have more mobility. They're going to be moving from school to school to school to school because they rent. They don't own. You're going to be looking at greater family stress, right? You're going to be looking at parents who are going to be less involved because of they're out there trying to work their butts off for their family. They're going to have fewer adult role models. That's where you come into play. More likely to live with a single parent home. Statistically, it happens. We know. I grew up in a single parent home. I struggled, and I can look at this and I can sit there and go, I know that it is a struggle without having two parents in the household. That's not the end all for a student. That's you support and you connect your life stories without giving them all your personal details to the student. They're going to have less knowledge of the general things. Like we said, a pen, this is a pen. Somebody could say, well, yeah, well, you should see how many varieties of that one pen there are. But then you're going to have a student that is impoverished that doesn't get to go to the pen store like the other student, that doesn't go to the museums, that doesn't, the pen store is obviously a connection to our questions earlier. They don't get to do extracurricular activities outside of what is offered in school. So it is, I'm trying to figure out how I can close this out. It's a struggle, and just thinking about these two main things out of this chapter: the child abuse and the neglect. And I know I'm all over the page with this, but the child abuse and neglect is something that I'm very, very passionate about, and I would love if there was some feasible way that it could be ended. But as an educator, my job is to make sure that the student feels safe and secure when they're with me, and they know that Mr. Hartman will always be there for me. Right? Obviously not personally at home. I can't do that. But when they're with me for 8 hours a day or in the same building as me for 8 hours a day, they trust and believe me that I will have their back no matter what. And then understanding impoverished students do not have the same, they're not being read books every night. Okay? Big picture, right? Big picture. Not saying that everybody in poverty doesn't do this, because that's not true. But big picture, they're not being read books at night. They're not going to have the same experiences, and we have to recognize that without going, oh, you're a poor kid. People do that. And it's sickening. I'm like, go find a different job. That's disgusting, right? But anyway, I'm going to wrap this up. I went a lot longer than I wanted to, guys, and I'm so very sorry. But hopefully you got some good quality info out of today. I'm going to end right now. I'm going to keep us under 28 minutes. I apologize. Go to your discussions. Give me some feedback. Give me some questions on this one. And we'll spend I'll go quicker. Maybe I should prep the questions so I can respond to them quicker. But with that being said, guys, I hope that you'll have a great week. Stay warm. It got cool outside. And we'll talk soon. Bye, guys.